Good evening and welcome to the work session for February 10th, 2026. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could remain standing for a moment of silence as we remember those those killed in acts of violence. Also pray for the return of Savannah Guthrie's mom, as that case has been gripping our country. Fortunately, some new evidence out today. And as we, of course, remember the greatest military in the world, the United States military, for all they do. Thank you. And we will have our chance to talk with some first responders tonight, so we will honor them at that point. All right, I'm going to mix this up just a touch. Before we get into the discussions, I'd like to jump over to the appointments section from the Office of Supervisor. This way, if the people that are here do not want to wait till the end, they will not have to. Oh, is Mike Hickens here today? Well, I guess Mike didn't make it tonight. Oh.
It's his big day.
No, Mike Hickens. Ah, gotcha. We'll have him take a bow at that time. We have 6 appointments to make to some town boards. We do have more openings that we are looking to fill. I think that actually we had four more interviews today. The people coming in, volunteering, looking to serve their community, we really, really appreciate. So, from the Office of the Supervisor, appoint Michael Rambaran to the Zoning Board of Appeals effective March 1st, 2026 for a 5-year term expiring March 31st, 2030.
Can you skip the next one, please?
Sure. Appoint Michael Hickens to the Community Housing Board effective March 1st, 2026 for a 6-year term expiring March 31st, 2031. Appoint Thomas Pfister to the Community Housing Board effective March 1st, 2026 for a 6-year term expiring March 31st, 2031. Appoint Frank Garcia to the Veterans Advisory Board effective March 1st, 2026 for a 3-year term expiring March 31st, 2029. And appoint Danielle O'Mara Damon to the Accessibilities Advisory Committee effective March 1st, 2026 for a 3-year term expiring March 31st, 2029. I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We go to adjourn.
Yeah, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
If I could ask those that are here on the boards that just got voted in, please stand up. We have Mike, we have Danielle, we have Thomas. Thank you for stepping up in your service, and we will make sure that we get Michael when he comes in. Michael Hickens. Frank, unfortunately, was not able to make it tonight. Okay, and then I have a motion to appoint Luciana Howat to the Planning Board effective March 1st, 2026 for a 5-year term expiring March 31st, 2030. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Have a discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a statement, if I could.
As long as it's not breaching closed session and
I don't
interviews.
think it is.
Okay, don't think.
I want to begin by acknowledging and respecting Ms. Howitt's willingness to serve our community on the planning board. Public service requires time, energy, and a real commitment to our town, and I appreciate anyone who steps forward to take on that responsibility. That said, my vote tonight was no on this appointment. My decision is not personal towards Ms. Howitt. It's based on my view that I believe other candidates were better suited for the position. I believe, I'll leave it at that. If Ms. Howlett is confirmed, and she has been, she's been voted, it's been 3-2. I want to guarantee I will do everything to support the board's work, the planning board's work, and to collaborate constructively moving forward.
Thank you,
I'd
Lenny.
like to add to thank Ms. Howard for her service on the town board, and I think this process lacked transparency. I think that the board was apparently she learned about the opening, I think even before it was publicly announced, and it was only I think at the recent meeting that Mr. Gilbert and I had to say that there was an opening on the planning board, and then following that announcement, we had 3 other people who applied for the job. One of them subsequently dropped out for personal reasons. Of the 2 other applicants that that submitted their resumes and were interviewed by the board, both had absolutely outstanding credentials that, while Ms. Howard has credentials, these other 2 far exceeded credentials. One of them had absolutely no learning curve. He started, forget the bottom of the ladder, he started at the top. He would have started at the top of the ladder. It would have been effective at day 1 with no need to learning experience. The second candidate had exceptional background in a field that is lacking on the planning board right now, and would have been tremendously effective in reviewing plans, in reviewing construction plans, stormwater plans, seeker plans, drainage, the kit and caboodle, and would have been an excellent addition to the planning board. And I think when we had time, and the town board, frankly, going back to the transparency issue, never had a discussion weighing the pros and cons of the 3 candidates. The resolution to appoint Ms. Howard, again, and I thank you for your service, showed up on this agenda without any discussion among the board, which is typically has been the process when we have more than 1 candidate who applies for an opening, that we interview them and then we discuss the pros and cons of the candidates. So for that reason, I voted no. But I wish you luck in your service.
So I just want to say something. Susan,
Yes.
that's your opinion.
Yeah,
And
of course
my
it is.
opinion is I think Luciana, you bring a ton to the table. You've watched the planning boards. You've been on the town board. Your building background. I think you're going to hit the ground running. And my opinion is you're going to start at the top of the rung. But good luck.
Yeah, and I will say it was a very hard decision, and I did speak with our planning board chair just to go through some of the stuff, and as he said, all 3 were good candidates.
Yes, they were.
So without a doubt, but there was an interview process. As I expressed to Alan, I was going to put my choice on to be either voted up or down, and that's where we are. And you know, that is part of the process. And transparency is, here we are, putting a vote up, and having it in public and doing it. So we can't really discuss the interviews. It's closed session, not appropriate. So yes, there were 3 really, really good candidates. And you know what? Right now, one of them is on the current board, so that's great. And the other one, if we have something that we could work into, that would be great. But similar to when Aaron wanted to come on to the planning board, I think my words on that were, he's highly qualified, and he skipped over someone who was sitting at that time as the alternate. And I wasn't thrilled about that, but I understood it, and I gave that to you and Aaron at that time, and I would do that for any candidate that served on our town board and served our town like that. I think that that's only appropriate thing to do, and once again, I think that there will be a great dichotomy of ideas and opinions coming out now, especially as we look at things having to do with the rec fees and Luciana's battle for the recreation department, and being now in planning with that eye and that look, I think is immensely helpful.
No, I think you would have gotten that from the other candidate as well, but let's That's,
Yep.
And I don't.
We'll say,
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I just want to say that
Mike Higgins here.
that some of the other candidates of the two, one was Republican and one was a Democrat, and if I had my choice, I even would have voted for a Republican.
Well,
So this was not a partisan issue for me.
I did not know what there
Yeah.
was. I knew Luciana because she ran for office. So,
So if I could say something?
sure.
Okay, fantastic. So, Lou, I think you bring a ton of experience to the planning board. I think you're going to do a fantastic job. You have an immense amount of experience in government. You know how it works on the back end. You sat up here with us, and your experience with construction has always amazed me. I just you come out with stuff. I'm like, how does she know that? So I think you're really going to do a good job. I think you're a top pick. There were other experienced candidates, but I think you, with your experience in government, your experience with construction, and your zeal for sitting on the Parks and Rec Commission, which I know you loved, is really going to benefit the planning board. You also are firm in your beliefs, and so I think you're going to do really a stand-up job, and I'm proud to have voted for you. And I know you're going to do a fantastic job. And that's all I have to say. And one last thing. There are other candidates on this list that we voted in today that there really wasn't any discussion about. So to say that, just appeared where it was the only one that had happened, and that's not accurate. But we'll move on.
I tend, again, not to divulge anything that happened, but I believe that there was consensus on the ones that, other than this one particular candidate. So.
Well, since our vote is done, Luciana, could you stand up and be recognized? And Michael, we did already vote on you. Congratulations, you've been sentenced to 3 years. Thank you, Michael Hickens. Oh, he's a 6-year. Oh, three for good behavior. Kenny, how many years do you have? Okay, so you see what happens if you violate when you're in jail. Very good. Thank you all once again for your willingness to serve. And as we talk about serving the community, we have a little bit of a discussion on the Daughters of the American Revolution. Why don't you come on up, introduce yourself, Rosemary, and let's chat a little bit.
So good evening, Supervisor Lockerman and members of the Yorktown Town Board. My name is Rosemary Schmidt.
Rosemary, I'm sorry. Could you try to pull that mic a little closer? Yeah.
I don't know. Is it on? Okay. I live on Barger Street in Shrub Oak. I'm also a member of the Polly Cooper chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Our chapter is named for Polly Cooper, who was a Native American woman of the Oneida Nation whose courage helped support and sustain George Washington's troops at Valley Forge. She brought food, cared for the soldiers, and refused payment for her service. Her story reflects the spirit of sacrifice and unity that shaped our nation. The Daughters of the American Revolution, which is founded in 1890, is a women's service organization, and we're dedicated to historic preservation, to education, and to patriotism. Every member can trace her ancestry to a documented patriot who supported the cause of America's independence. Our Polly Cooper chapter serves Westchester County, especially northern Westchester. Recently, we sponsored a historic preservation grant to digitize 218 issues of the Westchester Historian, preserving important articles about colonial life and Revolutionary War in our region. That project was completed and celebrated on January 31st by the Westchester Historical Society. Here in Yorktown, we've been active partners in the community. We've hosted genealogy workshops at the John Hart Memorial Library. We've provided literacy promotion books and bags to after-school students at St. Patrick's School. We're working with the Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber of Commerce on an America 250 advertisement at the Triangle Shopping Center for the week of July 4th. And just last week, we worked with the Yorktown Museum in identifying what may be the oldest American flag in our community, a 25-star flag dating to around 1836. As our nation approaches its 250th anniversary, we are eager to work with Yorktown to honor the patriots from this area who contributed to our nation's fight for independence. This semi-quincentennial is not only a milestone, it's an opportunity to recognize the diverse individuals who helped shape the nation we live in today. To support that effort, we propose placing a 20 by 20 inch DAR Revolutionary War Patriots bronze plaque mounted on stone near the monument of the Battle of Pines Bridge in Railroad Park. This plaque would honor the sacrifices of the Rhode Island Regiment during the battle and acknowledge the patriots of many cultures and backgrounds who fought for American independence right here in Yorktown. While the bronze plaque would be provided by the Polly Cooper chapter, we are asking the town board to authorize the purchase of a beveled granite mounting stone to accommodate the plaque and to authorize its placement in the park. Thank you for your time. We look forward to partnering with you in celebrating our shared history.
Great, thank you so much.
Rosemary, one quick question. Where'd you find that flag?
It's actually in the archives at the Yorktown Museum.
That's where it's been the whole time? That's pretty wild.
Yeah, but if anybody knows any older flag, we're happy to. You know.
What was the year on that one? 1836, did
It's
you think?
1836.
Yeah,
Pretty wild.
yeah.
What kind of condition is it?
I've been trying to find a 49 star flag, and they're almost impossible because it was only in service 11 months. So
Oh, yeah. We have a 45 in Chappaqua. There's a 45 star flag. That's in pretty good condition.
nice.
What are the local DARs in this area in northern Westchester?
So in Westchester, there's Hudson River Patriots, there's Mohegan, there's Polly Cooper, there's White Plains, and Ann Hutchinson. So there's five. There's 5 chapters.
And you're out of a chapter out of Chappaqua?
We are in Chappaqua. We meet in Bedford, but the lines blur about where one region ends and the other one begins. So, like I said, we're very active here, and we've had other chapters. Hudson River Patriot actually has a stone in where the Battle of Pines Bridge is. There were the stones that people donated, and have engraved. So that's Hudson River Patriot does that. Mohegan does a lot of things here at the Rochambeau festival. So, yeah, we share a love of history, so we're not that territorial about our boundaries.
And you've been to the Lions concerts before, I know.
Yes, definitely.
For the Veterans Commemorative concert. So no, it's some great things. Any
Yeah.
You- I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
You know Lynn Briggs? She's a,
Yes.
yeah. And what
What chapter?
what chapter?
She's Mohegan.
Okay.
I certainly value the work that DAR has done in terms of preserving and disseminating information about our history. But we already have, we will have soon two monuments to celebrate the Revolutionary War here in Yorktown. We've got the fantastic Pines Bridge Monument, and then we've already funded for $15,000 a monument that's going to go up in our Veterans Circle. That's already in the works, and I guess it will be coming up this coming spring. So I wonder why we need a third monument celebrating the same thing, and also possibly adding to, I hate to say it, but clutter at Railroad Park. But basically, it's, and is there any other way, and we appreciate your chapter's interest in doing something here in Yorktown, even though you're a Chappaqua-based thing, but is there another project where that money could be used to maybe enhance the already Veterans Circle issue, where we're going to have this Revolutionary War plaque there, and make that a more quiet, sensitive place for contemplation, which I think is what was intended when it was created there, as an alternative to just a duplicate monument, basically saying the same thing. Thank you for the Patriots who supported.
It is thanking the Patriots. It's specific for America 250. The marker itself does have an America 250. It's to help the community celebrate the semi-quincentennial. So that's kind of the difference between the markers. As far as it being a quiet place of reflection, that's one thing, but you also want it to be in an area that's well trafficked enough so that people can actually see it and appreciate it, especially the kids. It's really important for us to make sure that the younger generation doesn't forget our history.
I'd hardly classify Revolutionary War Monument as clutter.
I agree.
So I mean that
But
was just,
I take that. It was his to
okay,
do that.
it's okay. It's
Perhaps
okay.
could Lynn talk about something from the?
Actually, we'll be having her thing later if we want to have Lynn come up.
No, but could you talk about alternative uses to commemorate the Revolutionary War from the DAR.
Susan,
is what I'm
Susan,
saying.
I think that's a little inappropriate since we have been approached by DAR already, a different chapter, and what they want to do. I think we deal with Rosemary and her group. If you want to vote down later on, I do have it on here. You can. But, that we could use the same logic as saying, hey, on May 2nd, the Historical Society is going to be doing a parade and a commemorative, so we don't need anything else. We don't need Rochambeau. Why do we need that? Why do we need to have the singers? No, but it's that logic. But I'm deeply honored, Rosemary, that you chose Yorktown to come before us and make this request to be a partner with us, because Yorktown is so important to the revolution. It also, is great to hear that, and I didn't realize your chapter being after a Native American Indian, since the Battle of Pines Bridge was the first battle that was fought by the Rhode Island Regiment in the area. Well, not the first battle they fought, but the first regiment to be American Indian,
Right, it's an integrated.
African American, and Patriots. It was an integrated regiment. So that's like an amazing tie-in in the history, because I guarantee you that as we look at Daughters of the American Revolution, I don't know how many Native Americans belong now.
Right. So the society itself is an initiative called E Pluribus Unum, and it's really to get underrepresented minority patriots recognized, and it's been going on for the last 3 years, and this is a great way to do it. So yes, Polly Cooper is one of the people who is being recognized, but also as we try to uncover, there's a specific focus, and that is a wonderful reason that kind of led us here to Yorktown, because of the Battle of Pines Bridge and because it's the 3rd Island Regiment.
I'm happy that there is interest in coming to Yorktown. That's, I think, this 250th anniversary. I've already voiced my my support for doing all we can, and I don't mind partnering with Chappaqua and with your group, as long as it doesn't affect our ability to move forward on the other projects.
I heard something about DAR has a program called something about Gardens, Forever Gardens. Could you elaborate on what that is, and would that be an option here in Yorktown for this 250 celebration?
I'm not sure what a Forever Garden project is. I mean, we do so many projects. I'm not familiar with that one.
Perhaps can Lynn Briggs talk about that as a DAR member, as I believe it's a DAR type of a project. Your DAR chapters have multiple types of projects, as you've discussed. They're all very valuable, and I'm just wondering, is there an alternative to a plaque? Since we already have a plaque, can your very valuable contribution in Yorktown be for something else related?
Susan,
to this?
they've come with a specific ask.
Okay.
You could vote against it when we get to that point. Rosemary, I thank you so much, and once again, I on behalf of myself, deeply honored that tying into that Yorktown history, and you learn so much about every time. I have conversations with Lynn, and I got to be her Vanna White flashcard holder at one of our last meetings, and there's just so much that we lose and we don't know, and I think this actually will help to regenerate that, and even people knowing about Daughters of the American Revolution and the Sons of Cincinnatus, and the direct descendants to our patriots. I just think it's such an important tie-in. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ro. Thank you.
Just one comment, Ed. When I look at you, Vanna White
Doesn't come to mind.
furthest from my mind. Doesn't matter.
There you go. All right. So next up, our ambulance district study. Susan, since you're sort of the genesis, why don't you explain to the public what we're going to be talking about?
Right. First, I think there's some confusion, and it took me a while to learn the difference between the services that the volunteer ambulance corps provide, which is basically transportation to a hospital, and what we call the fly car or the paramedics, which is we contract with an outside company called Empress, and they're the paramedics. They're the ones that can provide advanced medical treatment before the ambulance takes us to the hospital, or they ride. I'm not sure if they ride with the ambulance, but they can provide treatment, but they cannot transport. So there are two separate. The town, Yorktown, already funds through our taxes the what's called advanced life support, the ALS service, and that's the Empress. But the volunteer ambulance corps are volunteer. They are getting increasingly hard pressed for money because they've got two basic sources of revenue. One is insurance reimbursements, and I know that the Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements are far, far below what is their actual cost. So they're losing money on that. And then donations. And what's happening, because they have a decreasing number of volunteers, both of them have had to rely on paid workers to cover certain shifts. So they're in a financial bind, and the cost for everything goes up and up and up. So I've been approached by both ambulance corps as what could we do to assure their continued viability, because otherwise we would be lost without their services. One of the options is something that other communities have. In fact, Cortland, for some of Cortland, not all of Cortland, because remember, Mohegan Ambulance Corps covers the northern part of Yorktown and a piece of Cortland. Cortland has what's called separate ambulance districts. They are separate taxing districts, just like we have a separate taxing district for our Empress, for our advanced life support district. So I think, in talking with the two ambulance corps, they would like to do a study of whether it makes sense to create ambulance districts, which would be a taxing district, which would provide basically supplemental revenue. They would still have their insurance reimbursements, they would still have their donations, they would still do their fundraising, but where there's a gap between their expenses and their revenue, the ambulance district would fill that gap. And because Yorktown is covered by two ambulance districts and one of them covers two towns, it gets a little bit more complicated. All right? So in talking to the ambulance corps and also with the town of Cortland, it seemed to make sense to do a study to see how feasible it would be to combine these two to create ambulance districts that would cover all of Yorktown, a piece of Cortland, and basically collect money and then disperse it to the ambulance corps. They would maintain their own separate independent identity. And this has basically worked out. The village of Ossining, the town of Ossining, and a portion of the town of Newcastle have worked together in this joint multi-municipal ambulance district. Okay, and they only have one volunteer ambulance corps that they deal with. Ours would be more complicated, which again is the reason to get some expert advice on legally, how do we do this? Financially, how do we do this? How do we distribute taxes between two towns, two ambulance corps? How does that work? Keep the independence of the ambulance corps. And then what would the tax impact be? Because none of us have any idea. It could be $1, $1 a year, $10 a year, $15 a year. I have absolutely no idea, because there are all these other complications. And that's why we think we need a study. I've identified some outside vendors who have specialized in fire district and ambulance district law to look at all of this, put it together. I've got an outline of services, legal issues, financial issues, government issues. How would this function? Who would be the commissioners for it? How would we maintain the independence of the ambulance corps? How would we work with Cortland on this? And by the way, Cortland has already voted, their town board, that they would share the cost of this study.
25% of the cost of
What?
the study. 25% of the cost of
Is
the
that,
study.
I thought it was, okay, I thought it was a dollar limit. And we don't know what the study would cost at this point. I'm just ballparking based on my knowledge of what we've spent, the town has spent for other consultants, that it could be less than $15,000, probably considerably less, but we don't know until we go out to quote. We would go out, get
And-
quotes, and
RFQs.
then see, and so that's why I'm asking this board to authorize the study and to authorize me to work with by myself or with the supervisor or with the department head to go out to get quotes. Let's get the information. Let's find out, and then only when we have a study, then we know how to proceed. Whether we can do this or we can't do it, or the consultant comes up with some other option. So we help to ensure the viability of our two very, very valuable ambulance corps.
Is that a fair ratio, the 25%?
Well, considering we're all of Yorktown and only a small section
Right.
of Cortland,
Yeah.
All right.
well, now that Rich already told me, maybe I would have looked for 33, but I think the section of Cortland, and well, you know what, we have our first responders, so they could actually come up and tell
Okay.
us about how much that is. Gentlemen, you all want to come up and
We have
talk
representatives
talk
from-
about Susan, introduce yourselves. Do we have Rick in a suit today?
No way.
Oh no, okay. I thought it was.
I've seen him in a suit.
So have I.
He looks good.
My apologies, I came from another job. Different uniform.
Not a problem.
How you doing? Matt Ness, Chief of Mohegan EMS.
Rick Davin, Chief of Yorktown Ambulance.
You all got to speak in the mic though.
Seth Porter, I'm on the board for Mohegan EMS.
So we cover, I want to say, at least half of Cortland, the
Oh, you
town
half
of
of
Cortland,
Cortland?
as our response district as well. We have a significant portion of Cortland.
One of the things we would have to put together is some of the statistics, on coverage. And also, I forgot to, one thing in terms of the need for this study is that both ambulance corps are experiencing a significant increase in the number of calls, which complicates the financial picture for them. So we're looking ahead. You're managing now. Thank you, but what's going to happen tomorrow? That's the issue.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we have reliable service coming to the town, because my family lives in both Yorktown and Cortland, and I'd like an ambulance to get there, as I'm sure you all would as well. So that's our idea for trying to do this. We don't know where to start. We have our ideas. I got the numbers sent over from Westchester County of how many calls we get, per week or per month. And last year, Mohegan EMS did 4,098 calls. I believe YVAC did over 1,400.
We're at 1,800.
1,800. So we're exploding at the seams. We're out of a garage. We have 3 ambulances. They have a beautiful house. We're trying to make it work so that we can get something going, so that when we inevitably expand where we live, we have reliable service that we can A, maintain our membership, and B, become the forefront for EMS workers in Westchester County. Because right now, I think there's only one agency that provides civil service, and not saying that that's what we're trying to do. We just like to make a model where we don't have as high retention. There's only one agency that really has civil service jobs for EMS workers, and the average pay is around $20 an hour for a contracted EMT. It's very low.
Years ago, my son worked for the Peekskill Ambulance Corps, and I have very strong feelings of the work you do.
So this is, any questions from the board?
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yeah.
you guys roughly do like 15, 15 to 16 calls a day.
During the snowstorm on the
365.
25th, we did 15 calls
That's what I'm talking
in
about.
that snowstorm.
If you add
Highest
both of
call
them
volume
together,
we've ever had.
it's a lot.
Time of history, we had the lowest call volume. Not kidding, we had one.
I wanted to double on some of the Matt's comments. In our 10-year, going back 10 years right now, we're up 40% in call volumes from 10 years ago. So that's a significant increase with a significant decrease in our ability to get volunteers to answer the calls. To clarify on what Susan said, we don't just transport, we have EMTs on our ambulances. So right now, for my split, 70% of our calls are BLS calls, which mean our 2 EMTs take that call to the hospital. 30% we use the paramedics. So paramedics go to both my calls and Matt's calls. On every call, a determination is made on the seriousness of that, and then whether that paramedic goes in the ambulance with the EMTs or not. So and I'm sure the severity is getting increased as well from when we originally started with the medics. The last piece, I spoke to Gary Link today or yesterday, and there is a fairly easy way, I think, to look at this. And he talked about currently how they do the fire districts. They do a parcel count in town, and he did a parcel count for me on how taxes are derived for the Yorktown Fire District as well as the Mohegan Fire District. And I'm sure Cortland could do the same on the parcel count. Parcel count includes every household and commercial building that's going to be built within that tax district. So I found that was, and he thought it was an easy way when you decide on an amount, how you would split it between the two cores and break it into by the parcel count of what's actually in those districts. And we're already split. Mohegan's got a fire district that they have a tax district. Yorktown does on our side, so it'd be just, our goal is to duplicate that to cover us.
We do have our comptroller sitting in the back working her computer, and I think actually aren't the fire districts and the ALS districts aligned the same anyway? Yeah, sure.
ALS.
I don't want Tom to yell at me.
The ALS covers both Matt's and my districts completely in Yorktown.
I'm sorry, for the fire districts and the BLS. I'm talking about it. Like if we were to look at your districts,
Yeah.
but Janelle, let Janelle come up. She
PD dispatches us. We only go on calls that are Yorktown Fire District.
Right.
Same with him.
Okay.
I was just spinning the wheels in my head. They're probably more like the school districts where the school has, different entities. So Lakeland will have, Cortland, Yorktown, Mayapack, whatever, different percentages. So we can collect what is due to them by their budget, and then we would just collect our percentage. The bill would come, and Cortland would get their portion to put on their tax levy, and then we would get our portion to put on our tax levy.
And these are all the numbers that the consultant would work out so that each board will be able to look at it and come up with some figures, because obviously we have to know what this is going to cost.
Yes.
But we don't know until we crunch all of these numbers.
Right,
Yeah.
and they would be a separate taxing district, which wouldn't impact our tax cap because the fire districts and the schools are separate collection. We collect on their behalf and then send them their funds.
All right.
So
Thank you.
We're the gatekeeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, right now I heard funding based on donations and calls, correct? Now, if I think it's a little different, Mohegan versus Yorktown on insurance. Do you guys get paid if you show up with BLS and do what you need to? Is there a bill generated to the patient for their insurance?
No. If you're asking about the ALS BLS split, is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that it works for us is we actually provide money back to the towns through the ambulance, through the ALS service. So we have a $1,500 flat BLS fee. Then when the ALS, if they're giving you actual medications, it's like going to the doctor. They bill based off that. I think it's a 60% goes back to the town of Yorktown and Cortland, and then 40% goes back to us.
Okay. So, all right. And so if BLS shows up and then they get transported, there's a bill which has both services. What if BLS shows up?
We have
and
$1,500.
And okay, so there is an insurance charge that goes through, but it's soft billing, correct?
Yeah, we can't go to collections, and I think our retention last year was 33%.
We can't even bill the patient.
Seth, step up to the mic. That's okay.
When they changed the laws for medical billing, ambulance corps fall into that now. So we can't bill a patient like you can't go above and beyond whatever the insurance gives us. That's it. So like if we bill out the $1,500, we never get $1,500. The billing companies handle all that. They know the laws, so that's a max that they could bill. I mean, our average call back on our intake on a BLS call is probably in the neighborhood of $550, more like $300 for Medicaid and Medicare. Our last ambulance that we have to buy is about $400,000. I mean, that's our budget is 2.1 million for next year, and we can't keep up with the costs.
Right.
We also need a building, which you were at and saw. We were working out of a 3-bay garage with 4,100 calls. It's just not feasible. Up until this point, for everybody, besides the insurance costs, EMS has been free in both towns, and it can't remain that way in perpetuity. It's just not going to happen. We're going to have to, at some point, there's going to have to be more paid staff as well as volunteer. I mean, we're doing fine with volunteers, which is why we've kept it at only 2 paid staff. But for 4,100 calls, it's a lot of volunteer hours.
So that was sort of my next question. How are you doing volunteer wise? How many currently? What do you?
So when Seth and I took over in 2024, we had 23 active volunteers, and now we're up to 128. So we've been heavily recruiting. I mean, every ounce of my day, and this is not my full day job, is at my day job. I've moved everything over to a OneDrive, so we've got 2 computers going, and we putting social media posts up, applications, trying to get people in. It's just not sustainable.
Every event I go to, you guys are out there soliciting.
Trying.
It's great. No,
I mean, both
it's
of
a
our
thankless
agencies.
job. You know.
Well, we do thank you though, and that's why we're having this. Not totally thankless. Maybe your part, Matt.
It is
Your
very
part
thankful.
soliciting 24/7.
Yeah, and then the retention's so low. We get a bunch of college students, and then they leave for 8 months out of the year, and they come back, and it's just hard.
Yeah, we just had one of Rick's junior corps here the other night from the high school for something different. But so you've definitely moved the needle on the amount of volunteers.
Yeah, incredibly.
And why we have people that like to volunteer here. I know a few people join boards. What are the advantages to volunteering? What do you are there any benefits for you guys?
It's different. I can't speak on what Rick offers at YVAC, but we have the Length of Service Award Program, which is a pension program. If you put in 25 years of service, you can get up to
600, I think,
a month.
when you retire at age 60.
Then we have medical bill reimbursement up to $750 per year. We have, we pay for your training. I get to be your boss for a little bit out of your day. We have a really good group of hardworking and fun people. And then you also get 10% off your property taxes, I believe, if you put in enough of and if you're a student, you get up to $3,000 a year in the Hero Scholarship through Westchester County.
I've heard some people who've even met their fiancés doing this.
I did. It's true. That was me. So while technically I'm her boss, I'm not really in charge.
Technically is the right word.
You're
Fiancé is a
smart.
member of our corps.
Yes, she's also a member of Yorktown Ambulance Corps.
And she works for Empress.
Yes, it's a
Matter of fact-
sore subject in the house sometimes.
And I will say, and you talk about what the sacrifice is. Monday morning after the big Sunday snowstorm, it was probably about 5:30 a.m. I was down in the highway garage talking, and there was a medical emergency, and it was Maria, right? Maria.
Lurie.
Came in for that call, looking bright and chipper for that hour of the morning. So probably coming off the end of her shift, but out there in those bad conditions, and it's appreciated.
Of course.
So.
So if we can go ahead, if the board can authorize me to go out and do it by quote, which would be a much faster way to do it, and then I will come back after we get the results and share it with the board, and we'll make a decision, and then we can proceed. And I'll share the scope of services, which I sent you earlier
Share
today.
the scope of services, and then we'll bring it back for next week, if that's okay with you.
Well, you have this. I gave you the scope of service, the final document you want to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and then we'll put it out next week.
Okay, all right.
But thank you for your work in it, and we are still
Well,
looking
thank
for.
them because it was their input. I just
Thank
helped
you.
to put it together.
EMS is very underrepresented, so this is just that we have this voice now is thank you guys. It means a lot.
No, well, you've had some loud voices.
Anybody looking to volunteer, please call Matt. Matt, get ready.
But no, so no, we appreciate this, and we always say, look in the decision process, we need to look forward, and a lot of times we also have to look back and suffer the sins of our fathers and mothers who were sitting at this table in the past, and this is something that I know it's an ongoing thing, and we may be looking at this with all of our volunteer services down the line, and I know the county is trying to look at some issues, but there's no quick, easy fix. So I think trying to get prepared and ahead of the curve, and seeing what we can do with our residents, chiming in on this. I think we'll look to try to get something out there where they could send in opinions. Maybe we could even do a poll, like a couple social media polls.
Absolutely. If anybody has any comments about anything we're doing, info@moheganiems.org. You can send us emails. I'm not sure if YVAC has
You got
an
to
email
click
account.
under the application button
Yeah,
to get to it.
after you submit an application.
Before you leave a comment.
Yeah.
Put the comments.
Yeah, but we're always open to suggestions and what you guys or what our residents are concerned about, and we're very transparent about what we do.
I just know from emergency services, you guys are like an insurance policy. No one takes it. Everybody takes you for granted until you need it. And Rick, you've been at my house a couple times, and thank you for everything you guys do. That's all.
Well, if I may channel Tom Diana, what he used to always say is, you'd be out. He was a cop. You'd be on a call and hear YVAC or MOVAC would be on their way, and you know what? That's the most reassuring things you could hear. And I agreed with him wholeheartedly. Rick's people have been to my mother-in-law's house, my brother-in-law's house. Knock wood, not to mine yet. But I think we've all seen you guys
What
at,
you do.
at some of the worst times of our life, and it's good to have that reassurance. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll next week we'll vote on it. I will provide all the details to the board, and I'll share it with you, and because I need your input.
Share it
because
with
it's to
share it
serve
with
you.
Janelle as well, please.
What? And with Janelle, yeah.
I'd like to see it also.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I asked Janelle in advance of this meeting about the procurement policy and gave her the parameters, and she said we could, by the current policy, we could do it by quote. Yeah. If it comes in more than 15,000, then the board will have to discuss it further. It's not, and it's a very specialized field. We need people with very specific knowledge in ambulance corps special districts.
Let's move forward.
Go ahead.
It's about time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a discussion on sewer districts and consolidations.
My favorite topic. Yeah, favorite topic.
Folks, this is going to get really, really exciting. This is.
Yes.
Hold on to your seats.
What's the old saying? The something's about to hit the fan.
Yeah.
But you need it when you need it. You need the sewers to function. You need them. Okay. And we have this affects roughly 8,100 parcels in Yorktown. So it's like 2/3 of our.
Dan,
parcels.
why don't you introduce everyone while you're up there, and we'll get
Okay.
going.
Just get this thing going.
Or you do that, and I'll let you know we're also being joined by Heather, our deputy engineer, and by Janelle McNair, our comptroller.
Just give me a second here. Okay. All right. This isn't something we've been kicking around for a long time. It's a pretty complicated subject. It gets messy. But I'll try and do my best to describe how this all works, and then we can discuss potential paths forward here. All right. So I guess the best way to maybe do this is talk a little bit about the types of districts we have and the journey that brings us to where we are today. So there's the concept of a benefited area, which always creates confusion because a benefited area is a provision in town law that allows you to build improvements based upon anticipation. So where this applies in our system was the Halleck's Mill District. The Halleck's Mill District, we were able to tax people in the Halleck's Mill Basin even though they weren't connected, but it provided the whole methodology to build the plant big enough to accommodate them when and if they ever connected. And this was all done during the construction grants program where during that time money was flowing. We used to get 75% from the feds and 12.5% from the state.
And what year was that, Dan? Just for
That was pretty much through the 70s. Kind of
70s, I got it.
died in I think in the early 80s. It kind of unraveled. But there was a good run there where a lot of our infrastructure was funded at that, sewer infrastructure was funded at that level. Then there's the construction capital cost, and that's when we established lateral sewer districts. The town's done a number of these. The one that's currently in the queue we're trying to finally make happen is Halleck's Mill. That's a lateral sewer district, and that benefits a certain group of people. Lastly, what's called a no-cost district. And a no-cost district accompanies when a subdivision is done. And the reason we do it is developer comes in, builds a subdivision, puts the sewer lines in, hooks everybody up. But by doing a no-cost district, it provides us with a mechanism to tax those people in the future. So by separate from the benefited area, the second two are the means by which we're authorized to collect O&M expenses.
which is operations and maintenance.
Yeah.
We
No,
got-
that's fair enough. I'll have to do,
I don't think we have
I'll
many
to do-
engineers in
Okay,
here.
I'll do the sewers 101. I'll try to work in the definitions,
Thank
fair
you.
enough. So method of funding, the capital costs we talked about, and the state controller's office is pretty restrictive about this, that you have to follow a unit charge methodology when you're doing this. So we have a method we use based on frontage area, whether we provide a connection or not, and it has to be that way because there's got to be this nexus between what it costs to, what the expense, how we assess people based upon what it costs to serve them. If you're doing a neighborhood where the lots have 200 feet of frontage versus a lot where neighborhood where they have 50 foot of frontage, it's a lot
Four
more.
times more expensive to
Exactly.
do
So there is a relationship there. The other issue is operation and maintenance. Now, the bottom line is tonight that's the question. How do we deal with that? We've got all these districts out there, and what we want to try and do is simplify what we're doing. So first thing, we're going to take a trip down memory lane to how we got into the sewer business in the first place. These were the 4 sewage treatment plants that the town had back in the 1960s. Osceola, Jefferson Valley, and Lakeside were all built by developers to facilitate their developments. So if you don't know where those were, Osceola is where Jefferson Woods Apartments stands now with Strang and Lee. Jefferson Valley is off Poplar Street. And Lakeside is where the Hunter Brook Pump Station stands today and by the Hunter Brook ball fields. So as time went on, things changed as we got into construction grants. So one of the things we did in the 70s, we created the Halleck's Mill benefited area, and through that, we eliminated Jefferson Valley. Jefferson Valley went away because now instead of pumping or treating it at that site, we pumped it to the Yorktown plant. And then Yorktown Heights, which originally was, the original plant was only 500,000 gallons a day and pretty much just served the Heights area. So when we did Halleck's Mill, we bumped it up to 1.5 million gallons today, which is where we stand right now. And that ends up being taxed in the Halleck's Mill benefited area. Now, as time went on, that evolved a little bit, but I won't get in the weeds on that. But basically, that's how we got to where we are today. Osceola, the change in Osceola happened in the 1980s. That's when they expanded Peekskill and the county ran the Interceptor up into Yorktown. So once that happened, the Osceola plant was no longer needed. So the district that went there basically just connected to the county sewer line. The plant was abandoned, and we continued, or that, because we inherited that system, we did not build it on our dime. There was a very rudimentary means of assessing it, which was essentially 1 unit per home. As it turns out, it was 1 unit per parcel, and that's sort of where we are today. That Osceola, every parcel is essentially 1 unit. Then we have this other situation in the 90s. So the last other plant we had was Lakeside. So what we did in the 90s was we had Lakeside, which was actually comprised of a couple of districts that the developers established, and then we actually had a couple of Hunterbrook districts. So what we did is the town did a bond resolution on behalf of those districts to create the Hunterbrook. We were authorized to spend money on behalf of those existing districts, which were no-cost districts. So because they existed, it gave us the ability to operate and maintain that system as we felt fit. So that allowed us to borrow money on behalf of those entities. And as is the case right now, that goes to Peekskill. So when you really distill down what we do in terms of pots of money, one thing is we have to operate the plant. So that's one thing. The other thing we do, which is essentially identical for Yorktown and the Peekskill system, is we operate and maintain the pump stations and collection systems. When you look at our infrastructure out there, you can see that both systems have about 8 pump stations. The mileage is 60-something miles in each district. Yorktown's almost 67, Peekskill's 60. So it's pretty damn close to being a wash between how much outside plant infrastructure we have to maintain. So, if we really distill it down, those are kind of the 3 functions we have. So right now, Yorktown Sewer gets a sewer bill. That's on our budget, and it's also on our assessment roll. When you go to Peekskill, there's quite a few districts that are still on the assessment roll and still have budgets. Clover Road, we still have a budget, still on the assessment roll. The debt is paid off. Overlook, that one still has debt. Mohegan East and Suncrest, both of those have debt. Mohegan West and Gomer, again, both of them with debt. Hunterbrook has outstanding debt. Hunterbrook 202, which was the business area lateral sewer district, that one's paid off. Bonnie and Jill, paid off. Osceola, we never had debt on that, at least to my knowledge. And then finally Oakside, which is one we have debt on. So you sort of have a mixed bag of what we collect right now. Now, if you go to what's still in the assessor's files, there's still district numbers. Like once they were paid off, they don't erase it out of the system. So some of the ones that are still hanging around are Lakeside Village. Like if you wanted to do an assessor's report, you could see what parcels were in Lakeside Village. We did a business area, Mohegan Lake, that ran kind of from the Stone Church to the, well, actually the condos put it into Mohegan Avenue, and then we finished from Mohegan Avenue to the town line. So that district paid for that. And then we did another sewer district on Buckhorn Street. So these districts, Lakeside Village, I don't think we paid for, but I mean, it's sort of academic, but Mohegan Business Area and Buckhorn were both done during my watch. And those are identical to in terms of where they are in how they're funded and so forth. All the districts I pointed out in that previous slide are identical to these. They have no debt, it's paid off. However, in these, we don't collect any taxes anymore. Some of them we do collect on the water bill. What we did is, I don't expect you to read this, but we kind of did a quick look at these no-cost districts. So the slide isn't to read, but it's to kind of make the point. There's a lot of them. So that I can.
Now, Dan, when you say no cost, O&M is,
But the distinction is like under 12 and 12A of town law, when we create a district, we have to do the whole thing, the map, plan, and report. We've got to lay out, again, it's the Halleck's Mill model, how you have to say what it's going to be, and either by petition or on the town's board motion, subject to permissive referendum, you go through this process and you establish it. In the case of a no-cost district, you're not asking anybody's permission. The developer has to do it as part of his obligations to get his project approved. So he
Okay.
provides us with that mechanism to
right,
tax
so
those
it's-
homeowners.
It was no cost to develop, but there are costs
To
with
maintain
operation, maintenance, and are there, I assume, charges coming back from the county for the amount of volume that we put through?
No, the county, well, the county's sort of another thing, and I'll just take a little diversion here, is that the county was done like the benefited area thing. And as you're familiar, there was, a number of years, and still the case, there's people who pay the county sewer tax that aren't connected. So bottom line is, if you're in that group, you're already in the county sewer district, or whether you're connected or not. And periodically, there's other subdivisions we bring in, or we get applications from people to go in, and the town has to do a motion. We've got to go to the county board of legislators, and there's a whole process to get included in the district. And in many cases now, probably like 20, 30 years ago, because people were upset about paying sewer tax and not benefiting from it, we had holes in the district, and now as properties are coming in for development, we have to go back to the county board to get them put back in.
So Dan, for the people at home, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't turn around and put all those districts under one sewer because some of those districts have a bond on them, some of them don't. And we're trying to simplify it to just go to like an O&M, operation and maintenance, so that everybody's paying their fair share.
Right.
I just,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
for the people at home
Yeah,
to
'cause-
understand what we're trying to accomplish.
Because when we go through when we establish a district, that debt and the group of people who benefited from that improvement kind of stays locked in for the life of the bond.
Yeah. till it's
And,
paid off.
that's usually how we do it, till it's paid off. Because even like these districts now are all have different maturities. Some of them are funded under EFC, so we get a subsidized rate. We have some sewer districts that are being paid for with bond anticipation notes. So to smash this together would really, I don't even know if you can, but there's certainly an inequity in the term of the bonds and
can't.
the interest rates. It would.
I just want the people watch on TV understand what we're doing.
They don't line up.
Yeah.
And-
no,
Right.
Just to be clear, that slide that had the list of many no-cost districts, those are all sewered properties. Are those districts that are no longer being taxed, but they have been incorporated into the other existing 11 Peekskill sewer districts?
Well, that's part of the problem. So let's
So
give
are,
you.
are any of those paying
I'll
any O&M costs?
say for example, there was a bunch of them like let's say like London Woods, Maplebrook townhouses, right? We call that Osceola because they were essentially ended up where the Osceola plant used to be. So they were taxed for O&M at the Osceola rate of 1 unit per dwelling unit. So yes, they are paying O&M through their taxes.
All right, my question basically is, are all of those what seem to be outdated sewer districts with no cost, they are paying something for O&M, even though they
Right,
have no
and
debt service?
that's the reason they exist, because
Yeah,
they
I just wanna
provide
make
us
sure
with the
that
mechanism to
they're
do
paying.
that.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And that's kind of the debate that, how do we feel the best way moving forward
To have
is
an
to deal
equitable-
with the whole thing.
The whole issue of consolidating all of the O&M costs on a fair and equitable
And Dan, one more thing, just for clarification, if I'm not mistaken, if you were in a benefited area and paid tax and needed to hook up to the sewer, or were able to finally, you would just be able to do it for the straight hookup charge. If you weren't benefited, then you would have to pay back. They would figure out how much you would
Well,
owe in the.
What I'll get into then. Maybe it's worthwhile to just touch on this other evolutionary thing.
Okay.
So when we did the benefited area, and everybody in Halleck's Mill was paying, that all the capital expenditures were being paid by everybody. So that had been the way we proceeded for many years. At some point in time, what ended up happening was, and I know for sure with the latest improvements were there, like when we did the ammonia upgrades with the RBCs and so forth, that stuff that we're paying off, and our operation and maintenance now is only paid by people who are connected. If you're not connected, you're not paying operation and maintenance. However, in our district, there's no buy-in or anything if you at some point tie in. So the only thing that happens, you get a sewer permit, you tie in, we notify the water department to put you on the list to start, collecting on your sewer rent, on your water bill. Peekskill's a little different because what ends up happening, because even the people that just opted out, some people opted out, and a better example was like Hunter Brook, because Hunter Brook was never in the original district. So when we did Hunter Brook, we had to do a buy-in, and that's the case even on people who parcels that opted out of the Peekskill district. You got to go back to the Board of Legislators, and when you go in, they compute a buy-in based on district equity, and that has to get paid off. They give you 10 years to pay it off. So if you were to look at our tax rates, you'll see there's probably like 20 different Peekskill districts, and what those are, it's for each buy-in that happened, it's them paying those 10-year increments for for the 10-year period. So Peekskill has a buy-in, Yorktown does not.
Can I say, perhaps we can kind of consolidate some of this, because I think the goal of this consolidation is really to take the 11 Peekskill districts, keep those that have debt service separate as the 8 sewer districts that are paying off their debt, but take all of the O&M costs for the pump stations and for the collection system, put that all into one district, so there's an equitable way that all of the property owners are paying. That they may be paying different rates, but they'd be paid all on the same formula and the same methodology, and this would be more efficient. Okay, and as Janelle said in her report, it would administratively it'd be much easier, much more efficient, and much more equitable. And I think that's what I think the homeowners need. I love to get into the weeds, on the creation of all these sewer districts, but I think this is all over the head of most people, and benefited and not benefited. And we're really dealing with the with the Peekskill district, and making sure that even though all of the bills are actually paid out of the YS fund, the Yorktown Sewer Fund, they're paying the Peekskill bills. So we have to make sure that Peekskill expenses are paying by Peekskill properties, and Halleck's Mill are paid by the Halleck's Mill, and there's an equitable distribution, whether it's a piece of equipment you buy or the staff time, and that's the issue. And by merging these districts is laid out, and I hope that I'm not sure if those charts are part of Janelle's report, but I hope Janelle's report is going to be made available, online, because it lays out the advantages of this. There are issues with the tax rates, which can be discussed. That's a separate issue. But the rationale for consolidating only the operation and maintenance costs for all of these 11 districts, and that's what we're talking about, without all the benefited and non-benefited. And
I think Dan probably gets to that, so why don't we let him?
Right, and you know what, and
Oh, what I think.
and the public may not get it all, but I think it's really important for the board.
I have learned, and I'm glad Mr. Kopstein is not here today, that we do not say that it is over the heads of the people here, as was just made.
Well, maybe our home
I see
viewers.
easily looking 4 people sitting off to my left who totally understand this, and I believe a few off to my right as well. So
Fair enough.
we are not going to assume that it's over anyone's head except maybe some of mine.
As we move forward, do we envision equalization?
That's what the whole
Well,
project.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Let's kick that into high
All
gear.
right, I'll move it along here. All right, so right now, this is kind of what's happening. Some people pay exclusively on their taxes. Some people pay exclusively on the water, and we actually have people paying both. Doesn't sound like a good way to do it. This is just a rundown on all the districts. Again, you know, you can see the ones that still have outstanding debt and the ones who don't. So what we started to look at is our rates. So Yorktown is $1.20 per thousand. The Peekskill districts, right now we're broke into two things. We established Chalet, because if you can think geographically, Osceola was kind of what went to the old plant. Chalet we established when we got the no-cost districts for all the condos in Mohegan. Again, they were no-cost districts. By doing it that way, it gave us the mechanism. So we elected to do it based upon water consumption. So that's how that evolved.
And Dan, what year was this?
I mean, I guess that was probably late 80s, early 90s we did that.
When is the last time there's been an increase in the rate?
Yeah, 2015.
So 11 years ago.
Yeah. Shrub Oak was kind of the same idea. It was kind of the area, say, we were saying between the Taconic and Chalet, they were going to be Shrub Oak. So, you know what? On that list I gave you earlier, I forgot about a big one, Stony Street. That was a very big sewer district, and that wasn't on there. So again, that's in the same class as Clover Road and you know, all the ones that are still on the books we're collecting taxes for. That district is no different. It was you know, so we played around just looking at rates, and again, you know, it comes down to is this. I'm only looking at Peekskill now because if we're going to strip the O&M out of the taxing districts, then we have to make it up somewhere else. And there's a real important point here I want to make, because when we started looking at this, I talked to Gary and our assessor. So I was trying to, you know, we were trying to see if we had a simple way to have a unit charge different than the unit charges we use for building the sewers, to kind of come up with one that would be an equitable way of dealing with properties if we were to do it by taxes. So we roughly said, let's do 1 unit per home, like Osceola is. Maybe we should dial back condos to 3/4, but how are we going to do the commercials? And then we got into the whole thing about, well, how much water are they going to use? The DEC has ratios for that. And then it just becomes clear, like, why come up with some convoluted system when we have a water bill? You know, it creates a very equitable way to collect that revenue, especially when you think of things like, you know, with the plant, it's a little bit of a different animal. We use a lot of electricity. We use a lot of chemicals. But even outside, we're using electricity to run our pumps and things like that. And there should be, a bigger user should be paying more. You know, a big, you know, whatever, you know, a health club should be paying more than a self-storage company.
Well, a lot of places, a lot of municipalities do base it on your water consumption. I mean, it's a proven formula. And I think we've had this discussion here on the day. So, you know, I think that's probably the way you would do it. And I think that would be more fair, because if you're using more water, you know, it's based on consumption.
Yeah, when I had Murphy's, the dishwasher went every 45 seconds versus a jewelry store that flushes the toilet 3 times a day.
Right.
Of course I should be paying more.
And that's a question I had with Janelle's report, which only seemed to deal with it all as a tax, all right?
Well, why don't I do this? Maybe what I should do is, let me just kind of close this by leaving where we got to go. And I think Janelle has a slightly different take than I have, how to clean this all up. But ultimately, I think we're going to have to discuss it with council, our bond council, to see, you know, how to do this. my short answer is hold on to the integrity of the districts that still have debt. Don't mess with them. Just keep taxing them. The units are established. The debt is known. So our next step would be to amend the sewer code, which I think we can just do by resolution after a public hearing, because it's just a local law amendment. The companion to that would be to revise the master fee schedule. Now, whether we want to go for the full amount or kind of ease our way in to start to develop some data as to how much revenue we'll generate from water, and then as we go into the budget season, tweak the rate accordingly. And then, like, the final step would be to do once this is all sorted out, that the 2027 budget would reflect the approach that we come to agree on. So that's, in a nutshell, my approach. I think Janelle's got a slightly different way. I don't know if you want to.
Heather, you got this?
I think the way that I approached it was a little bit different than Dan. He's an engineer and I'm an accountant, so I have to come to it from numbers and he has to come from the sewer district. So I kind of, gathered all the data to try to understand how to get this work accounting-wise. So I do agree with Dan about that we need to adopt the amendment tonight or next week about getting the sewer rate increased, because we need to start with that. And a simple way in my mind is that we have right now the YS, Yorktown Sewer District, and then in the budget we have 11 other districts. All 11 of those are going to be combined, consolidated into the Peekskill Sewer District. There's 7 that still has debt and 4 don't. So according to the New York State law, the ones that have the debt, you can't bring them into the consolidated district. You have to leave them alone. So those people would still get their bills based on the assessed units. And then we would move the budget of the O&M from those 11 districts and consolidate them into the PS district, a new district. There's $1.36 million of a budget for those 11 districts. Right now, we only collect in revenue from the water bill, from the sewer bills, about $300,000. We use appropriated revenue about $74,000, and we tax about almost $500,000. So right now, if we leave it as is with the $1.50 that we're charging in the rate, we're $500,000 short in revenue. So we do need to increase the revenue. So it's going to be over time that we will increase the revenue, and then once the revenue increases, it will overlap, and then we'll be able to take the tax levy and bring that down to release it. So that way, the O&M is covered just by your usage. And the other districts, like I said, there's 7. So there's I forget which one it is, but there's bands. They're in 4 to 7 years, those will be paid off, and then the bonds, the same thing. They're paid off in 2030, 2031, 33, and 33. So once those are paid off, those districts will also just be clear, because they'll just be gone.
They'll lose the tax.
They'll lose the right, because when they get their tax bill, they'll have 2 codes on it. They'll have their debt and principal portion, and then they'll have the PS district, which will be their O&M based on their usage. And like I said, once we figure out what that number needs to be to cover all the O&M, the tax levy for that part will go down. However, according to the municipal law, once we take and combine the district, right now we don't have to get New York State Comptroller approval because we are not bringing the debt in. But down the road, if we want to issue debt, it will now be in this new district. So I believe that Dan should go ahead and change the way that the units are assessed, because right now, like we said, a house is paying the same as a restaurant. They have that same methodology. So I think that we do need, in my presentation and another study that I looked at, there was different units assessed for residential, industrial, commercial, vacant land, and then that way we need to fix this all. So when we go the next time, we have to go take debt out. It's going to be the correct amount that we're going to be then charging these people in the new district. So basically, for accounting purposes and for the town board and for the residents, it's going to basically just be 2 districts now: Yorktown, Peekskill.
What about all the other non-cost districts that were up there?
Well, those, when we have to work with the waterworks, Dan will have to work with the waterworks, those districts right now will have to be put into the Peekskill district. And then when we record the revenue, that's gonna come into the Peekskill district.
So the debt services for the 7 districts that you were talking about, there were 7 independent.
Yes.
I just wanted to make
They're
sure that-
separate funds, so, and it also makes
Yeah.
it difficult for us because when we go to do something,
I just want people
Yes.
thinking that I'm going to help pay you,
oh, no, yeah.
so everything's independent.
Right, everything's independent, and right now they're separate taxing districts, so if we go to, if Dan, has to do a project, we have to allocate it out, we'll have to, divvy it up and by percentage, right? So if we, once we take and we combine everything together, when, it'll make it easier, because now it's one district, because you collect the taxes in that district, and that's one district, everything will be able to be recorded in the one district.
Can you explain if this is going to go online? If your report is going to go online and people are going to see it, and there's one of the appendix, I'm not sure if it's F or G. I thought I had one, and it compares the tax rate that they're paying now and what the tax rate would be with this merged district with the debt service for those who pay debt service plus the O&M. And if I remember, it came out to like $69.33.
Right.
But does that assume that all the O&M will be paid for as a tax and not water? I was confused
Well,
on
again,
that.
you have to understand, when I took that and created that spreadsheet, that's based on 2026 right now. That's just taking and moving the costs from all those 11 districts into the Peekskill Sewer District. When we go to, and me and Dan actually, he came up with his own analysis and I came up with mine. His, what was yours, like $70, I think it was, for the Peekskill District. Mine came out to 69. So I'm glad that, like, we both did it, you know, our own, and we both came out that it's about the same. So when you looked at that one that you were asking what that difference was for the Appendix G, if you look at the $69, that's basically, as of today, if you took your 2026 budget, which doesn't consider the cost increase that we're going to increase the rates for, it's at the $1.50 right now, and then takes what their debt payment is, it would take what the revised rate is and the debt payment and puts it together versus how we're calculating it right now. Some go up, some go down. I think the swing was the highest and the lowest, $80, $60, you know, one way to another one.
But did that figure calculate in, now people are going to see the cost for water consumption is going to be on their water bill. It's not going to be on our tax bill. So in your chart on Appendix G, the tax may go down, but will they now have to pay on their water bill? I want to look at the total.
Well, what's going to happen is, if you look at my spreadsheet, what's going to happen is, as the revenues go up because we collect from the water usage, then your tax levy is going to go down, because when I create my budget, you take your adopted budget, bring in the revenues, and then whatever the difference is has to be your tax levy. So as we increase the revenues to cover, and everyone then pays through their usage, not through their tax, the tax goes down.
Yeah, so when they're looking at the numbers on Appendix G, the ones who will look at it, like a Jay Kopstein, who's going to look at these numbers carefully, they should take it with the proverbial grain of salt, because it's a very fluid number.
Oh yeah, like, I mean, I put the note on there for you guys, like, don't count on that, that this is going to be what your difference is, because, like I said, that's just based on 2026 at $1.50, and plus Dan, when he creates his 27 budget, might have additional expenses, so
That's
now
fine,
the
yeah.
budget's gonna go up, and, you know, and then I think there's some that we're taking out because, they're completely paid. So, like, right now, I think I have some revenue in there for them, and it's definitely fluid. I mean, you can't hold me to, like, this is just as a snapshot in time right now where we think that it would be.
And water consumption varies depending upon your usage. A lot of people pay a minimum for 9,000 gallons a quarter, a billing cycle, and others may have 20,000 gallons. So there's a big difference, and homeowners can monitor their water usage,
Right.
which is one way of keeping
Correct.
their
So,
bills
and
down.
as we switch it and it starts being by consumption, now you might have people that are more conservative, and you think you're gonna bring in one revenue, and then we might not. And then if the revenues are short and it doesn't cover his O&M budget, then they're gonna have to pay by the tax levy. So we wanna make sure that the tax levy is corrected, or, yeah, or the unit is correct, and it's not the way that we've been doing it, because then it's still not gonna be fair.
So with that being said,
What do we do next?
I know.
can you analyze water consumption. No, but going forward, because let's say you have a project and you got to put in, in a magic wand, we're all on one district, and then you got to replace. I'm gonna just make pretend you have to replace, 100 feet of 1,000 feet of pipe that's gonna cost, $2 million. How are you gonna spread that $2 million debt service over?
Well,
all this new district.
Here's the thing. Me and Janelle diverge from how we want to approach this. I mean, the one thing that I strongly disagree with, because it'd be a ton of work and it ends up in my office and it doesn't provide any benefit. That's to continue to collect O&M through a tax district. Because even though some of the other districts use you end up around 2 units with the lateral sewer methodology, Osceola is 1 unit. So now you're trying to say that you got to reassess all those, you got to compute unit charges for all of Osceola. There's thousands of homes that aren't in Osceola or aren't in any of these 11 districts. So now you have to go out and figure out assessments for all these other properties that are not on the rolls. So my approach is strictly water. And this is where we need advice of counsel on, because the Hunter Brook scenario is exactly how I think this should proceed. So to your point, Hunter Brook, the actuality, the resolution, I think there was probably half a dozen existing districts, all of which were created by developers as no-cost districts. When it came time to borrow money and build Hunter Brook, Town Board adopted a bond resolution on behalf of that handful of
Properties.
the districts that existed already. We didn't have to go to Albany to ask for permission. We just the infrastructure was already in place to tax the people and collect the O&M. So I think Janelle and I can work it out, but I want to make sure one approach, that once you start, you're going to have to put a ton of work in my office and Gary's office to compute all these units now based upon a new methodology, which really ought to be reflective of how much water you use. So why do that when we have the perfect way to figure out how much water you use?
How would you assess? You have to replace the last 1,000 feet of pipe going into. And you have to take $10 million out. How do you assess that?
It goes to the
water consumption.
Water consumption, or
percentage.
If it's a big hit that needs to be bonded, then we utilize the districts that already exist. But like I say, that's the sort of nuance between me and Janelle where we diverge. And I think as far as the doing the local law on changing the rates, we got to change the local law to consider this other area.
We're getting a little bit in the weeds because, I'll say that, once again, it's the sins of the father. We set these up willy-nilly back in the day, it seems.
Absolutely.
Right. We can't keep kicking the can down the road.
I'm not looking at...
No, I know, but eventually we need to get this fixed. We've already spoken about how some of these unit charges are so far off and wrong. But the point being, if we do need to go to that, it would, I guess it doesn't have to be immediate because we're going to have a few years before it gets there. Right. But we need to eventually get all this fixed. It would be great to do it all at once, but I think that we need to have the project of getting a unit assessment that is more of a real picture.
But there's no point to it.
There is if we ever have to
the
bond.
fairest thing you have is people's water consumption.
But we're not talking about O&M. We're talking about bonding, and I think
it's appropriate.
If you think the water consumption, okay, so we could go through this and you can make your argument.
That's why. I don't want to belabor. I think we really need to get an opinion on this. But to go back to units is just asking for trouble, because But in close, here's where I want to leave it, because we can really advance this thing, because we have the list of parcels that go to Peekskill that are presently not paying on their water bill. We've sent it before. I was in contact with the Waterworks. Send them a spreadsheet. They can put them all in. All we got to do is change the local law to tax, or not to tax, I'm not going to use the T word,
To charge
to
based
charge
on
like
water
that
consumption.
and amend the rate table. And we could go with a lower rate. And if sooner we do it, what we can do then is we can start to accrue some revenue, but we could also have some data so that we know at the rate we're billing, will we be able to meet our budgetary requirements for 27? And as we develop the 27 budget, if we realize, okay, here's a bunch of things we got to do, this is what it's going to cost us, then we tweak the rates if we need to. But we will have already had months, maybe half a year of data to tell us how reliable that source of revenue is. And we can do that almost immediately.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the next 3 days, my Dan's card are full, but if you want to try to set something up next week for bond counsel, you, me, Janelle, and. Sure,
All right,
Janelle.
and I have can I ask just a question?
So-
All right.
I do agree with Dan on a lot of stuff, but doing my research under Town Law 206, we do need to create a special district to consolidate, and it's required that if you are going to consolidate 2 or more special improvement districts for the same purpose, then it's under Town Law 206, which then we have to do a public hearing, a permissive referendum to create the Peekskill Sewer District. So I agree with. I don't know whether or not Dan agrees with that part about creating the Peekskill Sewer District, but we need to do that in order to consolidate. So we can move forward with increasing the rate. We can move forward with working with Waterworks so we can make sure that when the water bills come into us, they're separated into the Peekskill Sewer District and the Yorktown Sewer District. We can then go ahead and move forward with the Town Law 206 so we can create the Peekskill Sewer District. And after we do all that, everything we can start. Again, the only part that we disagree on is I think that if we're going to do this, we do this correctly, because right now the O&M part will work fine because we'll collect it in the usage. But the minute that we go take out another capital improvement, we are not fixing the problem of the unit assessed number that we have right now. That's the problem that started all of this. So if we're going to go through and, create a district, why wouldn't we fix it
Well,
correctly? Right?
That's my question, and maybe it's a question for bond counsel. If right now, let's assume that the Peekskill District was in force and operating, and the water consumption was generating the proper revenue. We suddenly have a $5 million expense, a capital expense.
Yep.
Can that bond be paid for by this new Peekskill
Yes.
O&M district? And if you figure out what the cost would be to pay back the ban, we just increase the water rate from $3 per thousand to $3.15 per thousand.
No, then you wouldn't increase that. Because the municipal law also only allows that your debt and your principal and your interest can only be paid back through assessed units, not through water usage.
Okay, so Dan, that would seem to address your question if she's saying that the law requires that the capital cost be paid for, and this is a technical
Well, it's a technical legal issue.
issue. Yeah,
And I'm not going to.
bond counsel
I'm
has to
giving
weigh in
you-
on this.
I'm opining on it, but I know enough to be dangerous, but I would defer to counsel.
I agree 100%, Dan.
At the
So what we need to do is start the paperwork to create the public hearing to get the Peekskill District created. All right, that's a fairly routine thing. Then does the rate increase? That needs a local law, or is that by resolution? I don't remember. Is that in the master fee schedule?
I
That's
have
not a law.
Well, I have here because when we just did it with the water department, on January 7th of 2025, it started off that we did a town board resolution authorizing the town clerk to refer a proposed local law amending chapter blah, 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 water to the appropriate agencies and set a public hearing date for February 18th. So I
Okay,
would
so-
assume that
so
we
we
have to do
need
the
to-
same thing for sewer.
So we need two things, and we need the create the district is one public hearing, and to increase the rate to whatever
Local
you two
law,
experts suggested. So we have the data, and we can have this. And if we get it done soon enough, then we'll have
We-
possibly half a year of,
Janelle
of
and I
data.
spoke about having those for next week already.
Yeah.
And then we could start to move the process.
And in the meantime, you'll talk to bond counsel about the long-range issue, because I know there are going to have to be some significant capital costs in this new Peekskill district.
Eventually.
And the advantage to the residents in separate districts is that if the improvement has to be made in one district, right now, the way it's set up, only that district would have to pay. They'd have to pay the whole bill. Now it's going to be spread out over 4,100, so it's going to be a lot less.
Right.
You know, so that would be a benefit.
Well, actually, the number's gonna be higher because I think, there's like 400 or 500 parcels that aren't in there, so it's gonna go from the 4198 to 4,600
Yeah.
or whatever.
And so the cost will be spread
Spread
out.
out
It'll
even
be
more.
easier,
Right.
an easier burden on the taxpayer, which will make it easier for the town board to then say, okay, we need to raise $5 million. Right now, the town is reluctant to float bond issues for a specific improvement when it's going to have such a dramatic and drastic impact on a limited number of homeowners. Yeah.
What rate are you going to suggest? Do you know?
For the intermediate one, I think Dan had it right 250 on his slide.
What are
For-
you thinking? 250?
250?
I thought it was 250 you're talking now. Okay.
He's saying
Well,
250 because
and then in 2027, then we'll have to reevaluate.
Right,
Once we
based
see where we're
upon
at,
you look at
whether
the
or not
budget,
it
right.
needs to, if it's,
Unfortunately, what we're looking at is
Okay or
something
not.
that hasn't changed in 11 years.
yeah, 11 years, so
While our O&M costs have been
skyrocketed.
We had that issue when I was the supervisor with the water.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're trying to correct years of,
And we
yeah,
have
issues.
revisited that. and
Right.
make-
Thank you.
Okay,
We'll look
thank you.
forward to seeing the draft work for
Thank
next
you,
week.
thank you for the good work together,
Yeah,
and
and
let's
this
keep.
has been a long time in coming, and thank you both.
Heather, you owe us 20 minutes of presentation.
Oh, before Dan leaves, can he give us an update on the TV camera work that was done in the Hunter Brook system, which is one of our problem areas, and when are we going to have a report about what needs to be done there?
Well, we have two things we're looking at right now. We got all the stuff now, we've got all loaded into our GIS, so we can, it's very convenient. We can click on a pipe and watch the video and see the inspection data. The most interesting thing we got was actually, we had a good rain event, when was it, in October? October, we had a good rain event, and we have a monitoring device at the pump station now. So we could watch, actually in real time, could watch the flows pick up. And then at the same time, Weston and Sampson was out there. They had their sub in there who had put flow monitoring devices in. And we see that same peak showing up in the line that seems to be coming off of the field home. So Ed and I, we spoke about this. We're going to get some smoke. We got to warn them over there. We don't want people
Everyone
having
freaking
heart
out, but I
attacks, seeing
want
smoke
the
coming up.
smoke tests
But
going.
there's a lot of evidence pointing to that being an inflow situation. And, just so, again, it's like inflow means it's coming in catch basins, roof drains, it's just pouring in almost, you get an immediate response, as opposed to infiltration, which is high groundwater and it's kind of a slow and steady. This is, you just see the rate go up and you see the rate come down, and it coincides with actually I had it on here if you want, but
That's all right, Dan.
yeah, I know, you've had enough of me.
your job sounds.
Well,
It's a half
when-
hour of your life you're not getting back.
Can you give us an estimate as to when you might be able to give us a report on a draft plan as to what needs to be done to remediate whatever you decide needs to be done?
But we're going to go after the low-hanging fruit first.
Well,
I mean,
okay,
and,
a
and,
time frame
and then well, we got to go through. I mean, there's quite a few pipes were inspected. So
But at time, this has been hanging around since 2019, so I'm
I know,
kind
but
of
we just got the last of the data last month.
All right.
So
S-
it's done now.
All right, I'll keep asking. And while Janelle is here, second question. At a previous meeting, I don't know, 1 or 2 months ago, the issue came up about the pump stations, and you and Heather provided reports on how you're ready to proceed with Farm Walk and then the 4 other Halleck's Mill. An issue came up about the availability of funding, and you were going to talk to Janelle and see how that could work out, because we have a $5.8 million grant, which is roughly 80% of the cost. Have you worked out that problem so we can proceed at least with Farm Walk? Or is that still an issue about the availability of funds?
When I read the grant paperwork for that project, we have to fully fund our portion, and currently we don't have the funds to set up a capital project, so we can't move forward yet until we do the audit, and then we'll see how we did this year to see if our fund balance increased and where we're at, and then what we can do.
Yeah,
And
but you're gonna take money from the general fund balance to the.
No, you can't.
You
no.
can't do that.
No, from just the fund balance from the sewer accounts.
So
to-
you have to fully fund it, it's a
our
7.
portion. Well, we'll have to get confirmation that we get the funding from EFC for their portion. So once I get the commitment letter and that they hit close on it, then they'll give me a letter that they have their portion, and then we have to fund the balance, and then we'll have to do a resolution to transfer that money. So the entire balance has to be in a capital project fund before you can start work.
Even though we're not gonna, if our balance is 20%.
It's what is it, 1.4 we need, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta find a way forward on this, because we're gonna jeopardy of losing the grant if we don't start
where
doing
are we
stuff.
with EFC, Dan? Hold
Well,
on.
Well, no, we have the grant, we absolutely,
No, we haven't been awarded the funding yet. We haven't.
yes, we have the grant. It's,
No,
we have a signed
no,
contract
we
with
have the
EFC.
grant. We have not gotten the funding.
Well, that's a different thing.
I know,
But
but
we-
I
What do you mean
cannot-
we
I-
haven't
But we,
gotten the
but we
funding?
have a bond resolution. We're not obliged to borrow the money from EFC. We can buy it, we can get a bond on our own. I mean,
Can
we'll end up at
can we
EFC.
afford the interest and payments on a bond for
Well, Farmark's in Osceola.
6 million?
I could start pre-buying. If I don't show some progress on this,
When
they'll find a more willing recipient.
Understood, but we have to follow municipal law about funding projects. So it's not, I'm trying to, it's not like I'm trying to be cooperative, Dan.
What I don't
We have
under-
to follow law.
let me, this is what I don't understand. I hate to get into it, but like, we talk about Halleck's Mill, right? Halleck's Mill is a special district, a lateral sewer district. The way it functionally will happen is we can expend funds to do a map plan and report, which we've done and we're continuing to do. If that district gets approved, the district exists, we are thereby, with the district existing, we can authorize to spend money. You know what? The district ain't got a dime. But we can move forward because we've established the district and we have a bond, and the district will be responsible for paying off the principal and interest in that bond. So I don't see how this scenario is any different.
All right,
And
how
I gotta
about-
say,
how
I'm
about
real
this?
concerned about where we are.
How about this? Put it on for the conversation with bond counsel, and let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Okay, no, it's
But
real important.
but
Yeah, I'd like
right,
to resolve it.
but the interpretation of the finance law, of municipal finance law, and the interpretation of that, and hopefully, you know what, if EFC comes through in the meantime and we get the funding from them, as the paperwork's already in, that even moves quicker. But I don't think they were going to disperse funds until
The last phone call that we had, they said they would not be awarding the funding until, I think it was October.
October.
But to be clear, with the bond resolution, it's great to get the EFC money, but we can.
But we
float-
would have to fund the entire project with the bond, and then we would. I understand you don't,
EFC is no different.
Okay.
It doesn't change how we do it.
except that money is a grant.
No.
That's not
They're two separate things. We have a grant covering 80% of the cost.
Right.
And we did a bond resolution,
For the-
the
for
town
the
board
remainder,
did,
okay.
for the entire value of the $7.2 million.
Right.
So with that, right now, we could go out and issue paper for the 7.2 million, the way I understand it, and move forward. Now, Janelle's position is, well, you can't pay it, but that's what bonds are for. That,
All right.
and-
Once
and- well,
again,
we'll have that conversation with
bond
bond
counsel.
Well,
Yes.
since this is a rehash of a discussion that you had a month or 2 ago with no progress, I urge you, please, check this out with bond counsel, because as Dan said, there's a possibility that we could lose this grant. We're not going to lose $5.8 million because we
I
can't
understand that,
figure
but we
out what
need
to do.
funding and we need the means to pay for it. If we take out a loan for $7.2 million and we're losing money this year in fund balance, where do you want me to pay that from?
Do you have to borrow it all at once? You don't have to borrow.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but right now, say that the fund balance is, I don't know what the fund balance is, or
Well, the
if we had
sewer
a loss
districts don't
last-
have that kind of money, and you can't take it from the general fund unless you can
No.
borrow from the general fund and pay it
And
back.
again, if we don't have the money right now to sustain YS, and I'm gonna borrow money from general fund, how am I gonna pay general fund back? Because you have to pay that back by the end of the year.
I realize.
So if I don't have the funds to borrow or to pay to begin with, and then I borrow from general fund, I'm not gonna have it at the end of the year if I'm in negative again.
Janelle, I don't have the answer. I just hear
Okay,
two
so
different
once
versions.
again,
And talk to
Susan,
bond council, please, and get this resolved.
That's what I asked, Susan. So if you don't ask the question again, we won't have to give the same answer.
All right.
Thank you.
But I
Thank
just
you,
want
Janelle.
everybody-
Thank you,
Wait a
Dan.
minute,
But I just-
Dan, one other
But I just want
question.
everyone to know, it's not that I'm not working with Dan. It is that there are certain limitations with finance and municipal law
Yeah.
that I have to follow certain things.
I
And if the
understand.
funds are not there, I can't move forward.
All right,
We
Dan,
understand that. That's been said already 10
Okay.
times, and
go
we
bond
get it.
council
We need
next.
to move on. I mean,
Dan, one other
we
sewer
have an
question.
agenda here, and
Yeah,
we're
the
gonna get back on the agenda.
Hallecksville, the president did sign the additional federal money for $1.25 million. Thankfully, thank all our Washington representatives for getting us that money. Where do you stand with getting DEC approval, or even a concept of an approval, not necessarily the paperwork approval, to see if you can go through the Gomer wetlands, which is the hang-up? We don't know if we can even
I mean,
proceed.
at this point, we've talked to them about it. We have a plan showing it, or what we believe we want to do. And, well, when the snow melts, we'll get out there.
When are you going to speak to DEC about whether they will allow you conceptually to go through the Gomer wetland? Because the whole plan, the whole concept.
They have to come out. We got to flag it, delineate it. They're not going to,
They're not going to agree on the phone.
right, yeah, we got it. There's a process.
And
So-
Dan, you do owe me that original 1.25 from Mondaire Jones. You said you had that paperwork for me. I don't recall getting it.
No, there's an email.
Okay, please send it to me.
Yeah, we never did get like a real official.
Please send me
document
that
from
though,
them.
and I'll work. I'm already working to get it, but I need that notification date and all.
Dan, while they won't specifically give you an answer until they see the delineation and everything, have they agreed on the concept that yes, at some point there are instances where we'll allow you to go through the wetland?
No, it's always the case.
Okay.
I mean, if we've preserved a large, the Gomer wetlands is what we're backing up to, and on the areas that back up to like the tree streets there in Sparkle Lake, we walked through a lot of it, and some of that area, looks pretty upland to me. I mean, I'm not a wetland scientist, but like, according to our code, which is more restrictive
Right.
than the state code,
Right.
using the state's delineation requirements, I was encouraged by what I saw.
Okay.
Considering that you now have $1.2 million more, would you use that money to either the cost would probably increase from your initial cost in any case. Would you lower the cost to the homeowners, roughly 180, or would you use that money to expand the district and add a few more homes?
Well, I mean, I think the way we kind of reverse engineer it is to look at how much money we have, what we believe is a comfortable tax increase, and see how much pipe we can put in at that level of taxation.
Well, you've already done that for the roughly 180, and you felt you had a comfortable cost that
Yeah,
the controller
we
would
gotta,
approve.
we got to tighten up the numbers, obviously, and but the idea would be that, if the typical tax rate, we'll have a discussion about it. If it starts exceeding 1,000 per household, is that the pain threshold? I mean, if we think we can get more people by going a little higher and try to leverage the grants that we've got, because we also have the East of Hudson money, which plays into this. So, it's, you know, and of course, there's always the issue when you go public, as happened, probably you're the only one who remembers Halleck's Mill 8,
Oh,
that
yes.
there were people that were opposed to it, so the only way to move forward with it was to sever them off.
Absolutely.
So there, you know, so there's that whole game we may end up playing if there's pockets of people who really don't want the tax increase.
But conceptual, all right.
Let's get back
Yeah.
to the agenda, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Susan, feel more than welcome to call Dan at the end of the meeting.
Oh, he hears from me frequently, don't worry.
He'll be up waiting for the call. All right. So we're going to have a discussion about guidelines for the Industrial and Commercial Incentive Board, which is the board that did our initial report for our 485B tax exemption. The board was set up. They did their study. They came back with recommendations, which were adopted back in January of 2017. The board was supposed to reconvene. Unfortunately, a death of one member, two members falling ill and have been incapacitated. They never got back together. So we wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it to everyone. So we want to look at putting new members onto the board, although I believe there is one former member. I say former only because his term has expired, that we would look to talk to and interview. I think it would be helpful to have someone who was in the original conversation. We've been interviewing people, and I know Susan asked to interview a couple more, which we're waiting for them to come in.
Yeah, and I encourage people to still
thank you,
submit
Susan,
resumes.
and I highly recommend, if you're interested in this or any of the existing boards that are out there, to please reach out and submit your resumes. We are looking for fresh perspectives, open minds, and people who want to serve the town. So, Susan, I know you came up with a resolution, which I don't know if we need a resolution for a board that's there, but I do know that you had some thoughts to the process of what they should be looking at that I'd like to.
Yes, because I read the both the law that created the committee, just for shorthand, ICIB, okay, that created the committee in 2016, and then I have a copy of the report. And I don't think that when you look at it with hindsight, that the report was looked at the law and said, okay, we can apply the law. There were really no facts, no analysis, no real findings that said this is a good idea to have for Yorktown and under these circumstances. If you look at it, they met roughly four to five times, all right? They only, and in the report, it identifies the people who were at the meetings. They didn't interview any outside people, any additional commercial real estate brokers, commercial appraisers, anyone else who had a background in understanding the commercial market. They looked at identification. They looked at the current climate in Yorktown, and then they say, based on the above findings, the ICIB recommends. There are no real findings. There are no facts. There's no analysis. There's no data, okay? There's no indication of what research they did. So learning from the past and what was missing from that report, I put together some general guidelines. I don't intend, and I don't think we have to hamstring the committee and says you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are general guidelines. For example, the extent to which new business developments and/or the redevelopment of existing businesses, because both categories qualify for the 485B, in other municipalities in northern Westchester, have they been a result of the 485 tax incentive laws or any other business incentive laws that they have? In other words, if they should look at other nearby communities who have seen commercial development. And if they're doing it without a 485B, then do we need a 485B? Could we have the same development? A review of the existing vacant land in Yorktown and what is really available for commercial development. A review of the existing commercial properties that have potential for redevelopment. A review of the building permits for commercial projects, both new development and redevelopment for the past 5 years, and the total increase in the assessed value. A review of the 485 tax incentives that have been granted to date and looking at the tax impact that they've had, not just on the town, but also the Yorktown School District, because the Lakeland School District opted out of this. A review of the available literature on the effectiveness of municipal tax incentives. A lot of people back in 2017, when we had this interview, presented reports showing the effectiveness or the lack of effectiveness of these. The committee never looked at that. I'd like a list of the people they interviewed, that the committee interviewed, besides just the committee members, and a list of other resources used by the committee. So if we're going to, and I'm delighted that the board is considering reactivating this committee and taking a fresh look, whether we should continue the 485B, and if so, should the existing law be tweaked, or possibly we don't need it. I don't have the answer because I need a report. I need facts. I need data. Okay? I need evidence to the extent that it's available.
And that's what the whole idea of putting a committee together that has a very diverse background.
But to
that's
make-
what they're supposed to do.
These are
But-
good suggestions.
I get
though.
that.
No, they are. No, they're very good.
But that's also what a committee does.
But-
And you
but
get people from very diverse backgrounds that are gonna. It's gonna come up.
I will definitely agree with you, Susan, that there was sort of a what is it, a big bibliography or that should have been there of who we went through, who we did. But I think the same approach was used though with the people. I remember one in commercial construction and property management. We had someone who was in retail mall, real estate. We had people that were involved with banks. We had someone who worked with small business, Mr. Jankowski, who worked with the Small Business Association and different businesses. Bob Giordano was an alternate on there, and I forget who the fifth member was. But there definitely was that spread of people, which needs to be there. And I think with our interviews that have been going on, we've had people with much different, varied experiences. We have a former assessor that we're looking at. So I think there's some really great people there. But I do agree that, hey, we want to know how you arrived at these things. So these are great points, and I don't think there's much discussion that needs to go there. I think that when we get the board when we have everyone sworn in and we're looking at the first meeting, here's what we would like as our thing, and if I'll plagiarize you and take it right off of here.
I think, this should just be a resolution. It's a way of assuring that whenever they give a report, that it's accountable and they have done the things that we ask them to do. They could far exceed what we ask them to do, but at least some basics,
Sure.
would be there. For one of the things in another section is whether the incentives should be available town-wide or only to certain geographic areas. That's one of the options in the state enabling legislation. Whether the amount and the timing of the incentive should be modified. Again, specifically look at these options. You don't have to accept everything in the state law. The state law says you can
No,
change
absolutely.
these things. So I think if we do this as a resolution, at least it's there on paper and it's a guideline for them without trying to hamstring their activities.
I think that I think that giving them the guideline is adequate, personally, and I don't think it needs to be a reactivation resolution. Where, I was saying by putting people on the board, we're reactivating, and I think that that's important. Like I said, I agree. I think we should have a guideline each member should get. This is what we're looking for, and then they need to react to that and give it to us. So,
I tend to agree. I don't know whether you need a resolution or not, but if you have a suggested guideline, give them to every board member gets them.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, when they give you your report,
you check it
and
off.
if the factors haven't been considered,
We
we
don't-
ask them to, you know what?
Yep, we don't have
we'd
to
like you
accept
to
it
go.
until
We'd
we
like
get
you to
that.
go back. Please,
Absolutely. No, and that's that. And I will say also that, you ask about the, did it work, did it not? I would have to say the growth in Yorktown, even though it's only 9 businesses that took advantage of it to date, the growth in Yorktown commercially has been great because, why some people might mock big box stores and larger developments of shopping, the bottom line is it attracts people into the neighborhood. I own a small massage studio down in White Plains, and I love it when there's something busy around me because people see our signage and they come in. That's how you generate guest counts or customer counts, client counts. It's all a generation of walkable traffic. So all of these, the more restaurants we could put in, the more we could fill the commercial space. Although we've filled quite a bit, 450,000 square feet of the existing, not including the new built. It talks about the effectiveness of growing that community, the commercial community, and it really also talks about it sort of demystifies the whole thing about the Amazon effect, where people have said that there are definitely effects, but there are things that could come back, and we see it with the specialty stores, we see it with the services, we see it with restaurants, and
the other thing is, a fresh perspective on this is, Yorktown at this stage of the game is a much more desirable place for a business to want to come to.
Yep.
Because of the increased amount of shoppers that we have and that kind of stuff in a lot of instances. So I don't know where we are, but we have interviewed people. We're going to interview some more, right? And then we're going to make our recommendations, and we're going to appoint, and then we'll get this show on the road.
Yeah.
So,
But-
and we'll have a guidelines, and with the guidelines, I'm going to look through them a little more carefully. And I might have some guidelines for myself too.
Fine.
well, Susan, you did a very thorough job, and I appreciate
job.
it.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, as I say, it's just learning from the past, and that's what we should always learn and change and correct and make changes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Susan.
So resolutions from the Planning Department. Authorize the town comptroller to transfer funds in the amount of $42,150 for the 2026 RW 250 Yorktown Heritage Commission programs.
Did Lynn give I think I had a brief conversation with her earlier today, and I think she may want to have changed some of the
Well,
language.
it looks like the verbiage that she was looking at was changed because I see Yorktown Heritage Commission.
No, there was another one.
Lynn, have you seen the resolution?
Sure, Lynn.
Yeah, I think there was an issue in the second whereas resolution that's on the agenda, whereas the Rochambeau Pines Bridge Celebration Revolutionary War Monument, those are not part of of Lynn's the business plan that she gave us.
Right,
And
there
that's not part of your budget.
No, but it happens to be part of what the Planning Department's working on.
But the way this reads, though, leads me to believe that the cost of the Pines Ridge event and
No.
the monument is
Fine.
coming out of
No.
this.
Pines Bridge was actually paid for already. The
Right.
the Revolutionary War Monument was
Right.
paid for, and and we have a resolution for the granite for the.
But when you read it, though, it clearly sounds like this money for those two things
It's
is
not.
going toward it. Can we modify this? I sent in a note today with a couple of suggestions.
Sorry, I was in meetings through the start of this one.
And the one other thing it says is that we would be responsible for fundraising gaps. And the way we've put our budget together is we've identified some self-funded things and then pending funding. So those two things.
But
add up.
we've agreed to $42,150, I think it is. And so if there's any difference in that, it's not to dip back into the town. 'Cause
Right, but if you read it, it says that my commission, is going to have to come up with the funds to make up that gap. And I want to just make sure that
Isn't that what you said, though? You had your fundraising and you had your
we
projections?
we have funds committed and then some other funds funding from people.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so I submitted a modification of this later this afternoon to kind of clarify
Yeah,
this.
like I said, unfortunately, I didn't get back on my email from,
But your ask
Okay.
of, your
Yeah,
ask of the town was the
42,150.
42,150.
Which is
So you're saying 42,150 is the number? Okay. Independent of Pines Ridge, independent of the Revolutionary War? Correct. And
Right, unless for some reason some of your stuff doesn't come through, then we might redirect that budgeted amount.
You're pending.
Because
Right.
you've had some things, but if you come back to me and say, hey, we're not doing Rochambeau, which was $30,000 of it, then, I know you're not, I know you're going to do Rochambeau, but, it still has to come through the approval.
More of a
Right.
not to exceed.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're clear. If it doesn't account for the funding for the Revolutionary War Monument and Pines Ridge, we're good.
42,150 is.
42,150.
That was your ask.
Yeah.
We're delivering it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
Based
it.
on the budget
Yeah.
and what you are
Yeah.
going to accomplish
Yep.
from that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work and for all of the people involved in putting together, an unbelievable celebration. We'll be busy
Yep.
all spring and summer, I think.
Now, Susan, I thought you said we only need one
What?
celebration.
No, it's multiple.
Yes,
We
no,
want to
I-
see the plan. I said we only need
yes.
two Revolutionary War monuments.
So authorize the town controller to transfer funds. Do you want me to separate this, Susan? With the granite?
Yes, yeah, because I'll be no vote on that one.
Authorize the town controller to transfer $4,027.88 for payment of reimbursable expenses as part of the Beardsley contract for the Field Home Adoptive Reuse Project. And John, maybe next week, see where we're at with that.
Yeah, if he could give us an update
Yep.
on that.
I know he's been talking to them, so we're trying to
Move that
get to
along.
that next step. Yep. Authorize a fund balance release in the amount of $2173.46 for completed environmental review of the Old Hill Farm solar farm. Authorize the release of fund balance from completed environmental review of Home and Hearth. From the library. Are we doing anything on the library anymore? Since you sat here all night. Authorize the town supervisor to execute a 10-year lease agreement with the John C. Hart Memorial Library Board of Trustees beginning January 1st, 2026. And this is a requirement through DASNY for them to have funding to make sure that I guess the library is not going anywhere because, how many years have we been there at the Hart? 104. So you might be hitting a shelf life. Let's see. Yeah, I'll get that.
Okay.
From the police department, authorize town controller to transfer funds for approved purchase of hybrid vehicle for the police department, as posted below. Authorize bid advertisement for a police department 2026 F-150 police responder. Authorize 2 members of the police department to attend active shooter training with overnight stays. From the engineering department, authorize the town clerk to advertise bid for disinfection system, ultraviolet lamp replacement lenses, and maintenance parts for Yorktown Heights Water Pollutions Control Plant. From Human Resources, authorize the appointment of Gregory Zastanchek to the position of laborer in the Refuse and Recycling Department.
I would just suggest that on the hybrid vehicle, going back quickly to the police department, I think as part of that request was then also that transfer for the town controller.
And make the transfer as,
the 12,000.
yes, as enumerated below.
Right.
Authorize the following employee to carry over vacation time from 2025 to be used in 2026 as enumerated below. From the Finance Department, authorize the town controller to make a funds transfer for the Advanced Life Support ALS District for tax certiorari refunds. And the other ones were already done. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then just two things before we do the last resolution. The John C. Hart Memorial Library presents One County, One Read, a shared reading experience. And you could read the book and meet the author, and they're giving away 50 free copies of the book. Go to the library website for details, yorktownlibrary.org. What was that?
I think the author's going to be at the library all month.
Come up to the microphone real quick.
Ed, I'd like to just make one comment before we finish, too.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. The One County, One Read started in the beginning of February and will be ongoing all month and will go through till April, and that's when the author will be appearing at the Yonkers Library, and that's to represent all Westchester County libraries. We're doing this together. So this is the book.
For some reason, I want to go out for a beer after the meeting. It's about Samuel Adams.
It is the Samuel Adams, and so we're asking everyone to read. And in the spirit of all the RW 250 celebrations that we've been talking about tonight, this is another wonderful way to learn about our how we earned our independence.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Very good. Also, I did a wonderful show on Eagle Fest on Your Town, Yorktown. If you are one of the 6 people that caught it, my ratings have been really down this year. But Eagle Fest was actually frozen out this past Saturday, which was supposed to be the date. So this would be a wonderful time to take your Valentine to Croton Point Park and go to Eagle Fest, because it is now rescheduled for this Saturday starting, I believe, at 9 a.m. and that they do a bird show at 12. It's pretty amazing. I believe they're going to have two eagles that cannot be re-released into the wild, as well as they've had raptors, owls. Just really, really amazing show, especially if you're into that. And if you have any grandkids that are Harry Potter fans, they would love the owls, because they had one that looked like Harry Potter's owl there. And Lonnie, you had?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I can't believe it's been a year, but I'm now on the town board, and not only to serve the citizens of Yorktown, but to proudly follow in the footsteps of my dear friend Alice Roker, who passed a year ago today.
Oh.
Alice and I shared many of the same ideals and values, and I, along with many, including everyone here on this board, miss her dearly. May her memory continue to be a blessing to her family, friends, and fellow Yorktowners. And
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
And then we're going to go back.
She was a riot.
It's a rock.
Alice signed my marriage certificate, and I was the last person she swore into office before retiring from the clerk's office. I always told her I wouldn't hold either of them against her.
She told me I was too nasally.
All right.
You love me.
No, she was joking around. She
All
said
right.
that
Yep,
made
I
me
got it.
start cracking
I found
up.
it.
She cracked
Search.
herself up. Yep, sorry.
All right. Authorize the town controller to transfer funds the amount of $3,700 for granite base for Daughters of the American Revolution plaque. And then further resolved, the comptroller is authorized to transfer $3,700 from general fund to planning special projects. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we have our final piece of
Motion.
business before we say Happy Valentine's Day to everyone in Yorktown, and then we get the long weekend with President's Day, so that's awfully nice. Michael, I plan on reading The Silk Factory at that point, so thank you for that autographed copy. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good night, Yorktown.
Night, Yorktown.